It's yeah, we'll chat.
Welcome everyone to the meeting of the House Local Government Committee. We'll get started. We are going to make some rearranging in the agenda of legislation for a variety of reasons, but I'll walk you through that. First order of business is the call to order, which we just did, and the roll call.
Chairman Freeman.
Here.
Representatives Borowski, Donahue,
Designation.
Fleming. Here. Haddock. Here. Hambidge.
Designation.
Kazim.
Designation.
Madsen.
Here.
Monroe.
Designation.
Probst. Here. Prokopiak.
Designation.
Salisbury.
Designation.
Sappy. Smith Waddell.
Designation.
Chairman Miller.
Here.
Representatives Banta. Here. Cooper. Fink. Jones.
Designation.
Kozak.
Designation.
Kuzma.
Designation.
Reichard. Here. Rinkovich.
Designation.
Wattrow. Weakneck. Wentling. We have a quorum.
Quorum being present, we will continue. I'd like to turn to Chairman Miller to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Thank you, Chairman Miller. As I mentioned, we're going to take some of the bills out of order, and we might have one of the bills that we might hold over for a period of time. But what I'd like to do is call upon Representative Joe Cerisi, who has joined us virtually. He has a bill and a resolution that's going to come up. So I will call up House Bill 1318. Prime sponsor is Representative Joe Cerisi, dealing with the Borough Code. And before we turn to Joe, if Mr. Castelli could give us a brief summary.
Okay, House Bill 1318, sponsored by Representative Cerisi, would amend the Borough Code to eliminate the cap on funds that a borough may appropriate with the support of a county or regional association of boroughs. And presently, that cap is set at $100 limitation annually.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to turn to Chairman Cerisi and see if he would like to make some comments regarding the legislation. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Miller. And Chairman Freeman, thank you both and the committee. This is a simple bill that the president of the borough associations who lives in my district came to me and said that he has a lot of members who can't go because they have to pay out of their pocket because this fee has been $100 for years, and a lot of these conferences cost more than $100. The borough association came to me and asked me if we'd run this bill to allow the boroughs to be able to pay more. If they choose to pay more, they don't have to. But it'll allow more elected officials to be able to go on to their conferences and to all the things that they do. So it's a pretty simple bill. Again, it came to me by the president of the Borough Association who lives in my district and also the Borough Association themselves. Thank you.
There is a motion to report the bill made by myself, Chairman Freeman. Is there any discussion or comment on the legislation? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Okay to do a voice vote? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and the bill will be reported to the floor. Next, I'm calling up House Resolution 173, also by Chairman Cerisi. And if we will, we'll turn to John for a brief overview.
House Resolution 173, also by Representative Cerisi. This resolution calls on the Congress of the United States to establish the National Infrastructure Bank, which would be modeled on previous banks that assisted in building much of the nation's critical infrastructure and helped to spur exceptional economic growth. And I would note that the resolution is supported by the Boroughs Association. Some 30 state legislatures have introduced and passed similar resolutions of support, and the following Pennsylvania jurisdictions and organizations have expressed support, including the City of Philadelphia, the City of Pittsburgh, the City of Allentown, City of Lancaster, counties of Allegheny and Northampton, Northern Tier Central Labor Council.
Can everyone hear us on this mic? You okay? Okay. Thank you. Is there a motion to report the bill? The resolution, I'm sorry. Representative Fleming. Okay. Chairman Cerisi, would you like to make a few comments regarding the resolution?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a simple resolution, like was stated. We have done this many times in the history of this nation, where we've had an infrastructure or a bank of the nation that would help with infrastructure products and processes. We're not looking to do anything other than ask Congress to establish this. We're asking them to establish a $5 trillion bank that would be used for bridges and infrastructure across the United States. And like we said, many states have adopted this and have asked Congress to move forward with it. So it's just us to send a recommendation to Congress asking them to establish this bank, which will help for infrastructure projects across the United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Cerisi. Are there any questions or comments? Chairman Miller.
Thank you. While I think all of us would be supportive of the concept of fixing our infrastructure and jobs and that sort of thing, the issue at hand with this is our current national debt is about $36.8 trillion. And there's a lot of discussion about that and how much debt that is per person, which is about $106,000 per citizen in the United States of national debt. The bill contemplates $5 trillion additional in debt, but there's no contemplation about how that debt will be, where that money will come from, unless it's assumed it will be printed, which has its own corresponding problems that go with that. But then the implication, of course, if you borrow $5 trillion, you then have to repay it. While we all definitely, I think, do understand some of the needs that we have, I think for those reasons, I think this is not appropriate at this time, and I would urge a no vote. So thank you.
Representative Probst.
The United States government has done this in the past, and it was very successful. And we're not asking to do it in Pennsylvania. It's just a resolution to ask Congress to look into it and do it. They've done it before. They know how to do it. And I'm a yes on this bill because I really do think we need it throughout the United States. So we're just sending a request. So I'm a yes on the bill.
Representative Fleming.
Thank you. And since the good chair opened this door, I believe I'll just walk right through it. Part of the reason why we have a $38 trillion deficit is because we continue to cut taxes and do not cut spending. Period. The federal government has, President Bush did tax cuts. President Obama extended the Bush tax cuts. President Trump did tax cuts, and now is potentially looking at another round of tax cuts that economists estimate will be anywhere between $5 and $7 trillion that mostly benefit the wealthy. End of story. So to Representative Probst's point, all we're asking for is, this resolution asks Congress to look into this. Let's actually, I don't think borrowing is bad. Borrowing is actually good if you get a return on that investment. Sending trillions of dollars in tax cuts to the rich has not really worked as an investment in our country. I think the facts are clear, honestly. We've done this now for 40 years, going back to President Reagan, when he cut the top marginal tax rate from 75% to about 39%. Doesn't work. We're shrinking the middle class. Wages aren't rising along with productivity. So I just wanted to say that if we want to take a look at, if we want to throw out large numbers, let's have a robust conversation about why we got there. So I'm a yes on this. Going into debt isn't bad, especially if you have an ROI. The National Infrastructure Bank will give us an ROI by putting people to work and building the critical infrastructure that this nation has needed for decades. I'm a yes. Thank you.
I thank the gentleman for his comments. I should note that this really isn't creating any more new federal spending. It would be taking the existing national debt and capitalizing it in order to provide for the funding for the bank, for the infrastructure bank. And that's very similar to what Alexander Hamilton did with the First Bank of the United States. The debt was already there. They capitalized a portion of it and made it possible to then utilize that for worthy programs. And as is mentioned, infrastructure is something that we have not fully tackled in terms of our needs in this country. And an improved infrastructure will have the benefit of improving economic development and opportunity, which in turn will raise more revenue in terms of taxes raised through a more robust economy. So I think that's where the gist of this is. Chairman Cerisi, did you want to make any further comments?
I was going to, but I think all of you made my comments for me, so thank you.
Sure. Any other comments by any of the members? Chairman Miller.
Yeah, I want to thank the members for their comments and their interest in this. I think you would find a fair amount of agreement on our side of the aisle. This discussion here is quite a large one, quite literally. And for my part, I think, and I think for our part, I think we would acknowledge that there have been errors in the past in financial decisions made. I think you would find that, and probably among all of us, we would agree with that. The question is it appropriate to borrow additional $5 trillion? That, for me, is the issue, given the current situation where we are and how precipitously our national debt has risen in the last number of years. If we were maybe at, some lower number, it might be something that could be contemplated more, at least in my mind, but for my part, I think at this point it's not advisable, so I would urge a no vote.
Any other comments by the members? Representative Probst.
And I appreciate the chair's comments, but when you look at what is going on and the trajectory up, there's no better time than now that we need to do something. So I hope everyone supports Chair Cerisi's bill for that reason.
Any further comments? Seeing none, I suppose you want a roll call? We'll take a roll call.
Chairman Freeman.
Yes.
Representatives Borowski, Donahue,
Designation yes.
Fleming. Yes. Haddock. Hambidge.
Designation yes.
Kazim.
Designation yes.
Madsen.
Yes.
Monroe.
Designation yes.
Probst.
Yes.
Prokopiak. Yes. Salisbury.
Designation yes.
Sappy. Yes. Smith Waddell.
Designation yes. And I should note, Representative Prokopiak has joined us in person.
Chairman Miller.
No.
Representatives Banta. No. Cooper. No. Fink.
No.
Jones.
Designation no.
Kozak.
Designation no.
Kuzma.
Designation no.
Reichard.
No.
Rinkavage.
Designation no.
Watrow. Weakneck. No. Wentling. No. 1412.
The vote is 14-12. The resolution will be reported to the floor. That brings us to
Thank you.
our... I'm sorry. Thank you. Mr. Cerisi, would you care to say anything?
No, I just want to thank you for letting me speak this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for attending. Again, we'll be going in reverse order. Our next order of business to be taken up or called up is House Bill 1282. Representative Davis, who is with us. First, we'll call upon John to give a brief overview and then call upon our caucus secretary on the Democratic side if she wishes to make some comments.
Okay, House Bill 1282, sponsored by Representative Davis, would establish the freestanding Flood Hazard Notification Act, which would impose a duty on municipal corporations and counties to provide notification to real property owners of changes to special flood hazard area maps of the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Under the legislation, a city, borough, incorporated town, or township that receives notification from FEMA that a change in a preliminary special flood hazard area map concerns or relates to real property within the municipal corporation shall provide the following to each owner of any such property. 1, written notification that the change has occurred within the municipal corporation. 2, written notification of the name and contact information of the appointed floodplain administrator for the municipal corporation. And 3, written notification of the internet website address and telephone number for the National Flood Insurance Program. Then a county shall, within 90 days of being informed by FEMA of a change in a final special flood hazard area map, relating to real property within the county, provide to each owner of the property written notification that change has occurred, and notification sent by first-class mail to the last known address of the owner as shown on the current real estate tax assessment record shall be deemed adequate compliance with the act.
I'm sorry, Representative Davis, would you care to make some comments on your legislation?
Thank you, Thank you, Chairman Freeman and Chairman Miller. Thank you for this bill. I've had this my whole career here. It started after Sandy, and after Storm Sandy, the FEMA maps changed all over the country, and my maps in my district hit about over 1,000 new people put in the flood zone that never had that before. I don't know how they came up with it, but it did. And we had to quickly get everybody from Pima and the state down there to have town halls on what they could do to make it better, because it's a fee. Flood insurance, if it's needed, could cost up to $2,500. They also included areas that just have like a little creek behind it, or a little, anything with water that were never flooded. So this is, and they didn't know how to handle it. So that's why I brought this to your attention. And just for the members' information, FEMA maps can be changed anytime, depending on what happens in the district. If there's major flood zone, major development, they could reevaluate your flood maps. And I know they tell the township or your municipality, but most people don't look on their websites every week to see if they're in a flood zone until they get that letter from their mortgage company. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the prime sponsor? Sorry. Representative Haddock.
Yeah, I would like to thank the sponsor of this bill. I'm a former mayor and I'm a former banker, and the bill's been around a long time. You must, because when you said it's $2,500, because the need and the usage of flood insurance has kicked in, the federal government has raised the rates, and now that $2,500 plateau is well into $6,000 to $10,000, depending upon the property. This has been a problem expounding. It's amazing. In my borough, I put in a flood control project 25 years ago, and one thing the federal FEMA does, they are very quick after a flood to add the flood zone out. But when you put a hazard mitigation project through in the boroughs or in any government, they do not shrink the maps back. A 100-year floodplain, a 200-year floodplain remains on the map for 100 years, even though you put the hazard mitigation through. So in my borough of Avoca, these people that got flooded, and we were many, many times, and the maps were surprisingly accurate for 100 to 200 years. They really were accurate. But when the flood goes higher, the water goes higher, the maps change out. They never go in. And people that have owned properties through families for generations now get to the point when they finally have to get a mortgage because they want to remodel their family homestead, and it might have been in there for 3 generations. They find out that they get hit with an exorbitant flood, and the banks require it to protect their asset. A loan is an asset of a bank, so the banks are the bad people that make the mandate out there when there's a mortgage, and then the people are shocked, and then a lot of times they can't afford remodeling their own home, or let alone buy that house. So there's double-edged sword. Not only the new land that gets put in, but when a great project gets put through, like I was fortunate enough to do in Avoca and the surrounding communities later at it, the maps don't shrink. So this is a major problem, and I thank the maker of the bill for her advocacy in this problem.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Any other comments? Representative Reichert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I certainly, appreciate the maker of the bill too. I was a former town planner, and obviously we see a lot of flood zones and issues that pertain to this. I guess my real concern though is at the last meeting we were informed that Representative Cooper replaced Representative Flick, and I just happened to hear that this legislation would require me to send a letter to them telling them the change, right? So essentially, I get what you're trying to do. I just don't necessarily understand if requiring our municipalities to be the point person for this is the right action, right? It's requiring municipalities to notify people about a program that they don't administer, about a decision that they didn't make, and I just fear it's going to lead to some confusion and some, people are going to say, well, you sent me the letter. Well, we didn't administer the program. Well, but we sent you the letter, right? And it's just that kind of back and forth that I'd like to avoid, again, having been the recipient of the people that would, called in. And again, I applaud you. I understand absolutely what you're trying to do. I'm just not sure if this requirement is the way to do it.
Thank you. I get what you're saying. It's just, I don't know, like I have a lower income area, so they don't use their phone. I mean, the internet, they will not get, I get it, but it's a problem that it's a problem. Thank you. Sorry. Stupid.
Mr. Caselli has reminded me that federal regulation requires FEMA to notify municipalities of changes, so they receive that notification. Correct. At that point, it's proposed. Yeah, there's a two-step process. Yeah. Representative.
Is it my?
Representative Borowski, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. So thank you to the maker of the bill. So I have a similar situation when I was a township commissioner. We had areas that were flooded that weren't supposed to be flooded until a 100-year storm, which we seem to get every year or 2 years. So because FEMA is the one that FEMA notifies the townships, they don't notify the individuals. I think that as a township, if you know that and you don't notify your community, they're coming back to you. They're not going to FEMA when something happens. So when a flood happens in my community, it is my first responders that are out there getting people in the trucks or the rafts to get them out of their homes because their homes have become surrounded by water. It is my Public Works that is out there cleaning that up. So people are going to look to the township no matter what. And I think that if you are the township, it behooves you to let people know this so they are prepared, because they are going to come to the township when something happens. So to me, this makes a lot of sense. I can't imagine that the cost to be incurred is going to be extensive. I can't imagine it's the entire township. So I have a township of 30,000 people. It's not going to be 30,000 people that need to get a mailer, but it could even be something that people receive when they get their sewer bill, their water bill. It could be incorporated into another mailing that the township is already sending out. So I think it's a great piece of legislation, because I think the more information people have, they can make an informed decision. And to find out that you are all of a sudden in a flood zone and you have to pay for flood insurance when you haven't been in one, and as Rep. Davis said, people who've lived there for years, never being in a flood zone, and all of a sudden are, it's a huge expense and something that people need to be made aware of before there's a flood. So I think that, any responsible municipality, I would say my municipality, would be happy to work with their residents to let them know, and then they can have the option to do what they need to do, but at least making them aware, because they are going to come back to the municipality when there is a flood. That is who's going to be responsible to help the people. Oh, I'll be a yes on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And did want to note that PEMA has intended to include funding for future budgets to help reimburse municipalities with required floodplain expenses. So that's something they're looking to do as well. So We do have an amendment to bring up if there's no more comments on the bill in chief at this moment. And I would like to bring up Amendment A00711, which was largely at the request of the Insurance Department and Municipal Government Association. And I'll call upon Mr. Caselli to give us a brief overview.
Okay, Amendment A 00711, offered by Chairman Freeman, would make the following changes to the bill. It would require municipal corporations to include in their notifications written notice of the 90-day appeal and comment periods provided under 44 Code of Federal Regulations, Part 67, which relates to appeals from proposed floodplain elevation determinations, as well as the date on which the appeal and comment periods will terminate. It also requires that the Department of Insurance to develop and make available a standardized template notification form that a municipal corporation may utilize at their discretion in providing this information. It further reduces the time frame in which notifications must be made by municipal corporations and counties from 90 days to 45 days. This is being done to allow for time to appeal and comment. Then requires counties to include with their notifications a disclosure about the increasing flood risks to many properties within the Commonwealth, and encouraging them to visit the department's website to review these risks, as well as to consult with an insurance professional to determine whether their homeowner's insurance policy covers damage caused by flooding, and if not covered, advising that coverage may be available from an insurance company or through the National Flood Insurance Program. And finally, it clarifies that a municipal corporation or county shall not be liable for the failure of a property owner to act on the written notifications provided under the Act.
Any questions on the amendment? Seeing none, let's take a vote. Do you want a voice vote or a roll call? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Oh, Mr. Reichert is recorded as a no. So that passes 25 to 1. We now get to the bill in chief. I have already moved to bring it up, so we can take a roll call vote on that, unless you want just a voice vote. You care for a roll call? Oh, well then we'll do voice vote and we'll record you. All those in favor of House Bill 1282, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed, Representative Reichert. So that'll be 25-1. The bill will report to the House. Congratulations, Representative Davis. House Bill 1194, which I'm calling up, a James bill, and we'll turn to Rob Gardner for a brief overview of the legislation.
Good morning, everyone. Representative James Bill 1194 is a local government commission bill. This authorizes second-class townships to accept irrevocable letters of credit or other forms of security as part of a contract. Currently, they are only able to accept bonds. This will expand their options when trying to secure security for a contract they're entering into.
We do have people here from the Local Government Commission. David, do you and your crew want to make a few comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Miller and the rest of the members of the committee. Thank you for your consideration of this commission bill. This is about flexibility and consistency. The other municipal codes affecting first-class townships, cities, and boroughs allow for alternative methods of performance security, including letters of credit. It's important to realize that the responsibility of the governing body to provide adequate performance security is still there. What this does is allow them additional options of vehicles. I know from our own contracting in producing the municipal codes for distribution to the municipalities, we've heard from vendors that procuring a bond is often more difficult than procuring an irrevocable letter of credit. And ultimately, those costs are passed down to the taxpayer. So this is about flexibility and getting the municipal codes consistent where it makes sense. This is bipartisan, bicameral legislation, and with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody might have about the piece.
Any questions for Mr. Green? Seeing none? Oh, I'm sorry. Representative Fleming.
Just one generally, Mr. Green, and I may be opening up a Pandora's box here, but in my time on this committee, I have found that there is so much, there's not cohesion in terms of what class of municipality or county can do what. And I know the local government commission has done yeoman work in trying to streamline that and try to get, try to remedy that. Why in the world did we do it this way, where it was just, sort of different rules for different classifications of municipalities and counties? Can you give me a historical perspective on sort of how that came about and why that was done?
Thank you for your question. It's important to realize that there are real substantive differences between classifications of municipalities. Everybody on this committee knows that. Boroughs are different significantly than townships of the second class in terms of their density and configuration.
Right.
What the commission has strived to do, and we have even bills in the hopper for a uniform procurement code.
Right.
Okay?
Yes.
Where uniformity makes sense, I assure you, the commission will keep working, all right, to make sure that that is achieved. That's one of the reasons we're here today. But there are significant reasons for differences among municipalities in substantive powers and duties. And this stems from the notion that townships of the second class were originally road districts. They were large rural areas with a very small quantum of powers and duties.
Gotcha.
Okay? And it's different than city government. It's different than borough government. It's different than township of the first class government. But I assure you, we are working in that direction. This bill is one example of that. I hope that's responsive.
No, it really does, and I do appreciate that. Like, obviously, you will not. We have a city of the first class, and you will not. You will not hold boroughs necessarily to the same standards, and so I do get that piece. It just seems to me like we still have a lot of work to do to achieve that uniformity. So, and I appreciate, again, this is not a criticism at all. I appreciate the commission's work because it does make sense to provide that uniformity where we can. So I applaud the commission's efforts and the maker of the bill, former Chairman James. I really do appreciate this. It makes a lot of sense, and as someone who has, served as a commissioner in a first-class township but now represents a borough and a second-class township, I can certainly appreciate the differences between the classifications. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Green. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The bill passes unanimously and will be sent to the floor. Thank you, David.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Our next order of business was to take up House Bill 985, my legislation to establish a tax-exempt property municipal assistance act. Before we move on that, though, I would like to ask Dr. Vinny Cannizzaro to please step forward. He is the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Economy League and has been most helpful to me and my staff in doing a lot of the statistical work which appears in the spreadsheet governing this legislation. So if you want to give a brief overview.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hi, everybody. I'm Vinny Cannizzaro. I'm the Executive Director of the Economy League. We've been working on this data for a while now. It is data that we obtained from the counties and also from STEB to get a better understanding of the level of tax-exempt properties in individual municipalities throughout the Commonwealth. It's assessed data and using the common level ratio, turning it into market value for both taxed and tax-exempt properties to get a better understanding of the percentage and what those distributions look like. For this legislation, and I'll let the chairman talk about the specifics of it, but there's a 15% threshold for municipalities to be eligible, and the second eligibility criteria is 112% of the median household income. That is
115.
What's that?
I believe it's 115.
115. Yeah, thank you. 115% of the median household income that is obtained from the American Community Survey, which is a census survey, census data, and is compared to the median throughout the state. I can answer any specific questions about the data, how it was obtained, how we did the calculations, but I'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you.
Any questions? Oh, Representative Probst. Sure.
I am very excited about this bill, and I was hoping it would have, even come out last session. My only issue, and if we could fix it, it would really work out great. I'm just looking at my county, for example, Monroe. The borough of East Stroudsburg is 71% tax exempt. The borough, or the township of Middle Smithfield Township and Coolbaugh Township are only 16 and 17%. And they're getting $1 million more than my borough that is 71% tax exempt. In the formula, I realize it's 15% or more, but if I'm requesting you to look at the percentages, because East Stroudsburg Borough, Stroudsburg Borough, our boroughs deserve more than a township that's only 1% over the threshold.
Absolutely, and I think that is part of the legislation, so I'm not here to discuss the actual legislation, but let me give you an idea of how the numbers were calculated. It is the aggregate of all tax-exempt properties throughout the Commonwealth that were qualified, and it is a equitable percentage of what each municipality's total market value of their tax-exempt properties is out of the entire aggregate number. So for most municipalities, it is less than 1% of the total amount throughout the Commonwealth, and that percentage is then applied to the total amount of money that is available. There's multiple iterations that you go through to get to that final amount, but I think what you're referring to is the population maximum, that there is a set amount in the legislation that says you can only get $100 per the total amount of residents. So if there is a municipality that has fewer residents but a higher total amount of taxes and properties, they're limited by their population maximum.
Well, on the flip side of it, when somebody is 1% over the threshold and getting almost $2 million, and then a borough of 10,000, they can only collect tax off 29% of the people that live there. It's very
Sure.
skewed.
Yeah. I think we can.
I want this, and believe me, I'll
Sure,
vote on this bill because it's something for every municipality that has been dying since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
So I'm a yes on this.
Yeah.
I just wish it would be looked at a little more intensely on the percentage of the tax exempt properties.
Sure. Yeah, and I will say the numbers are based on the language that as it currently stands. I'll toss that back to the chairman for any changes to the legislation, but I'm more than happy to take a look and rerun numbers to figure out what any new changes to the bill would look like and what that amount would actually be. And I hear you. I mean, I've been getting calls from municipalities for months now that they are interested in this bill, and a lot of municipalities, they really need this money because they're losing out.
I'm a former mayor of Stroudsburg Borough, the county seat, so I really appreciate this bill. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Vinny and I did speak before the meeting, too, about the possibility of some amendatory language to address that issue in particular. Again, the intent of the bill is to make sure that we can drive the funds from the liquor tax into those communities with a high percentage of tax-exempt properties. There are places like Harrisburg, which is at 59% tax-exempt. East Stroudsburg is 71% tax-exempt. Johnstown, I believe, is about 60%. 56 for Stroudsburg, so they really are hurting. And because of it, that leaves them with a very limited tax base to raise the revenue necessary to provide for essential services. So the intent of this legislation from the start is to try and bring some fairness to the local funding formula by compensating those who have a high percentage of tax-exempt properties. Keep in mind, many of those properties are valuable regional assets. They might be a non-for-profit hospital, a university, the county government center, but they don't pay real estate taxes. And given the structure of our local tax system, if you don't have taxes coming out of those properties, you're being shortchanged in what you can provide as far as services too. So I think Representative Reichert was first, and then we'll go to Representative Haddock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I apologize for my ignorance. Is the formula based off of assessed value or market value? Because Franklin County, my county, hasn't had an assessment since 1961, so there's a bit of a gap between the two.
Yeah, we ran into that issue before in earlier versions of the legislation, which also came out of committee, as a matter of fact. But Vinny, you might want to talk to that.
Yeah, and this is a problem throughout the Commonwealth with property assessment. So it is based on the market value to try and create some type of equity between the level, the date of the last reassessment. Using the common level ratio, it tries to standardize what the values are for any individual property and what the total value is for properties throughout the Commonwealth, regardless of when the last reassessment occurred. Yeah.
Representative Haddock.
So when I saw some of the numbers to Representative Probst, I wondered if the chart could have been wrong. Our funding formulas are so complex sometimes, and we try to make it simple, and I know the chairman does a great job with stuff like that. But there's disparity in these numbers, and I go to the education formula. We've changed it several times in the state of Pennsylvania to try to get it right. But I don't know, besides some of the disparities at the tail end of this, and what is the rule for payment in lieu of taxes? Was there any consideration? Some boroughs and municipalities have been able to effectively talk to the nonprofits and the tax exempt to get payment in lieu of taxes provided. Is there provisions in the bill to address that, Chairman?
In an indirect way. Pilots have not been as successful as they were originally hoped to be when they came up with the concept. Many nonprofits don't feel it's their mission to have to pay a pilot. Some acknowledge it, but will limit the scope of it. They'll buy you a new fire engine, perhaps, but they don't want to be tied down to an annual fee that they have to expend to the municipality. So they're less reliable than the kind of funding that would be envisioned in this legislation, which would be ongoing because of the fund that would be set up with the Johnstown flood monies. We do note that if you are receiving the money from the tax-exempt municipal fund and you already have a pilot, that pilot would be deducted from the amount you get from the fund, so you're not going to double dip. But pilots have been pushed for many years. Depends on the institutions you're dealing with, how they feel they are obligated and whether they're willing to pony up the money. But it's been very difficult for many to come through with money. Good concept, but just tough to execute.
If I can add a comment to that, obtaining data about tax-exempt property is very difficult because it's exempt, so it's not at the top of folks' radar and priorities to obtain that information. That includes information on pilots. It would be going to each individual municipality and really going through the budgets or talking with those municipalities to get an understanding of what those pilots are. There should be additional data collection that would be done, and that would need to be done in order to obtain that information and then make those deductions from the amounts that you see in the spreadsheet right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that clarification. Appreciate it.
Thank the member. Given the consideration that there is some thought about ways to refine the legislation further, believe me, this has been a priority of mine for since 2007. So I'm anxious to move it, but I also want to make sure we produce a good product. And I think we're close. I think we have a very good product. I think we've identified what the threshold should be accurately. Perhaps the one area that needs some work is the per capita cap of 100 per population. That can sometimes skew things in terms of what the appropriate amount of money is to give through the fund. So, Vinny, if you're willing to sign on for a few more sessions, we're willing to look at additional language to possibly refine the concept and get it a little closer to where we want to be. I do think we have a good product, but I do think it might need some refining.
Sure, yeah, just let me know, and I'm around to answer any questions about the data and really help out, so thank you.
And we'll be scheduling some Zoom meetings with you.
Sure, that sounds great. Thank you.
Walk through it. Any other questions regarding the legislation? Sure, Representative Cooper.
Yes, I was just curious, what percent or how many were not included based on the threshold that's in the bill?
I don't have the data in front of me, but I think there's about 930-ish municipalities that are included in this spreadsheet. The previous iteration that was from last session, I think it was somewhere around maybe 1,200. I'd have to go back and look. So not so many that were excluded based on the threshold and then also the median household income. But I mean, there's 2,500 municipalities, so it's about whatever that is. Yeah, a little less than half. Yeah. Yeah, there's about 900 municipalities that are included right now.
And the median household threshold as a criterion was added this session because we found from previous iterations of the legislation that in some cases dollars are being driven to rather wealthy communities who probably didn't have the same need as those that normally fall into the tax exempt qualification. So that was felt to be a fair measure of how to drive dollars. Any other questions after 18 years? I can talk Adam about this forever. I usually can kill a cocktail party quicker than any human being I know by just saying, oh, I'm working on tax-exempt legislation and how to drive dollars to compensate municipalities. How to tax-exempt. Where are you going? Oh, you're just refreshing your drink, Charles. I'll see you in a little while, I'm sure. Yeah. Then it's a very lonely evening. It's after that. But But I think we have the bones of a good proposal here. It just needs to tweak a few items to make sure we can get it properly crafted. So with that in mind, we will postpone dealing with 985 until our next meeting, which I believe is scheduled for June 9th. So when we come back from the break, that'll give Vinny and my staff plenty of time to refine some of the language. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or any other items to bring up before we adjourn? Seeing none, this House committee stands adjourned. I thank you for your attendance.